probably worth saying that. So we've started to explore these sort of ways of looking at our experience, the ways of looking at existence. So there's 3 different approaches we've been teaching, and about to come on to the third one. But it's worth saying that in a way they're all sort of slightly different sides of a kind of pyramid in a way. Yeah, they're not separate, and so really the sort of teaching from the Buddha is to look at our experience in these 3 ways. And what I'd really recommend is that, particularly in meditation, you're trying to look at your experience in at least 2 of the 3 ways. So, yeah, it's like we've already explored the ways in which our experience is impermanent or inconstant. And if you start to do that more, then you'll also, it'd be really beneficial if you started to look at things being unsatisfactory or not sort of fitting somehow. So, an example of that would be when we were doing the breathing practice just now. You're starting to get a sense that, no breath is the same breath. The way the air moves in and out of our body is constantly changing. So there's lots of conditions that affect the way air moves in and out of our body. Temperature affects it. How we physically are affects it. If we're relaxed, that affects it. If we're tight, that affects it. But ultimately, it's just quite a mysterious thing. If we just honed in on the breath, it's just quite a strange thing, isn't it? I was thinking, I'm sitting here in this space, breathing with you all. This air that we share is moving in and out of us. But there's just something quite mysterious about, well, in a way, like why does that happen? Why, when you sort of get into the more meditative looking, it's like things start to break down. Usually we think of it as our breath, that it's us doing the breathing, that there's this breath and then that breath. So even the concept of breathing, it's just a descriptive word to construct some of our experience. It just gives us a way of talking about our experience. But actually air is just simply moving in and out of this body. Yeah. And then in a way, well, what is air? Yeah. So you can sort of go further and further. And also you can go further and further into, well, what is this body? What is this being? In what way do we construct ideas, senses, intuitions of who we are, what we are? So when you look, it's like you're starting to break down your actual conceptualized experience of what's happening into an actual direct non-conceptual experience of what's happening. And it sort of leads you deeper, the thread goes deeper into, well, just in what way do we construct our experience? So if you get that sense of sort of impermanence, so what I'm really trying to say about these 3 things being different sides of a pyramid, it's like you might start to now get a sense of in what way is the breath, the air we breathe, an inconstant experience, an impermanent experience. And you'll also get a sense of the way in which you are with it affects it. So it might not feel a particularly satisfying experience or a relaxed experience. Often we're just subtly kind of gripping our experience. It's like we're sort of stuck in a certain way to our experience. Like it's like we get in the way. So we create this kind of unsatisfactoriness, this dukkha. So every time we cling or grasp a hold of something, we're creating this tension with our experience. So I don't know about you, but I just got that sense at a certain point. I felt like the breath was just breathing, if you like. The air was just moving, and it was no longer in an idea about my breath, which is just a subtle way in which we grasp onto our experience. We create this narrative that it's ours, and that just creates tension, often in the body. So often that's where it shows up. So good to look in those two ways. And then this third way is in a way exploring insubstantiality. It's a way of exploring how we construct experience to make it more substantial than it is, to make it more fabricated. In a way we overcomplicate everything. We fabricate our actual experience. So we often don't know we're doing it. So when I talk about this kind of mark, we're going to be into the territory where, we're just becoming more and more conscious of the way we construct experience. And the Buddha said that because we construct experience and tell stories about our experience, often that causes us suffering. So it sort of takes us back to the second mark. So I thought I was thinking about an example of that could show in a way the three marks of existence that we've been looking at, and show where they might show up in our own life experiences. So I was thinking about this experience. The example I was thinking to use was of when we are in a romantic relationship with somebody. So I'm sure some of you will have had that experience. Yeah. So the first thing to say about it is, we bring all sorts of habits to romantic experiences, and often we bring the view that we want them to last. Yeah, that we sort of invest in them, don't we, in a particular way? Maybe invest our time, our emotional energy, our ideas about life, and in a way we it's like we over-invest in it. So we would like it to be probably more than it is, probably more than it will ever bring us, and we would certainly like it to be permanent. Yeah. Most of us, unless you're a bit more trendy than me and you're into non-monogamous relationships, polyamory and stuff. I was thinking for most of my life, the romantic relationships I've had, I've just felt like, I really want them to sort of go somewhere. Yeah, I want them to be a satisfying experience. And often that means that I view them as more permanent than they are. Yeah. And so I sort of, I don't look through the lens of impermanence when I look at my romantic relationships. I put the other goggles on, and I put the permanent goggles on, and through those goggles I sort of ignore all of any signs that they might be impermanent. Yeah. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So you sort of fabricate an experience, don't you? That I don't know. Maybe you don't like something about your partner, but you can often very subtly just sort of push that kind of away, particularly in the beginning. You understand. It gets a bit different later on, doesn't it? But it's like you just sort of ignore certain things, and you really focus and sort of over-invest on, in a way, a story of that person, of how they are. You're not quite alive to the deeper reality, are you, of who you and they are. So you get that sense that, they are impermanent, our intimate relationships. Some of us will split up with people and get divorces, and ultimately, everybody and everything we love, we will have to let go of. Ultimately, they will die and we will die. Sometimes you don't know who's going to go first, do you? So, but that's a truth. That however you look at a relationship, it is impermanent. And I suspect we find that slightly heartbreaking. So we often just look for signs in which we can place our trust in things being more permanent. We don't like to let go of what we love, and so emotionally, it doesn't feel like these relationships are impermanent. Emotionally, just really do cling and push for some sense of permanence or constancy, where there is little, in a way, if we actually explored our direct experience. So often we're clinging a hold of an idea of constancy or permanence. And ultimately there's no, if we take a step further and we look at, in a way, this mark that says that everything is insubstantial, ultimately there's no you and there's no me. So when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, the way you are habitually, and the way you fix yourself and that person, you make something much more solid than there actually is. So it's like you become the couple, don't you? So it's not only like that there's not you and me, it's like you become something else. You fabricate a sort of story of something even more. And you definitely make a sense, don't you, of that your partner is yours. Yeah. So we often talk about that, don't we, in our language. It's like we make our partner ours. Yeah. And then something else happens when we lose them, doesn't it? It's like we become really aware that they weren't ours after all. That we weren't theirs either. That we are just a kind of being, a living organism. That we're related to others, but we're, in a sense, our story and the way we like to fix our experiences, we like to say, oh, you're mine. Or, when we introduce our partner, often we say, oh, this is my partner, don't we? It's just a story. And so the Buddha says, oh, you've got to look deeper in your experience. So all there really is to us and our sort of intimate other is just a story of change, really. It's like a being that kind of changes. Everything that we're made up of is just a set of processes that just changing all the time. So we have thoughts, we have views, they just change all the time. Often we get quite fixed, don't we, and we think we've got a certain set of views about things. But if you meditate for any length of time, you'll realise that your views are quite fluid, your thoughts are quite fluid, your sense of your body is quite fluid, sense of sensation in the body. So everything is just change, yeah? Everything has this impermanent quality. It's inconstant. But not only that, but there are no things. When I say there are processes, I can't actually encapsulate them, yeah? Try and encapsulate what a thought is and call it a thing. It's just, in a way, a sort of a thinking. It's not even like a thing called thought or a sensation. It's just sensation, seemingly arising and passing away. I say seemingly because you need to investigate it in your experience. And I was thinking the main way often that it shows up that we've made things ours, or fixed things in a certain way, or constructed things, made them substantial, is when things change. So, say your partner leaves you, yeah. Then you become very, very aware of how clingy you often are to these things, these sort of relationships that you've made a thing of, if you like. So the Buddha basically taught that there's no kind of there's nothing that's constant, yeah. There's nothing that's substantial in a particular way, so fixed, that nothing in a way can be grabbed a hold of. It just sort of falls through your fingers. So ultimately, the way we perceive ourselves and our emotional habits around that and our story about ourselves, it is just a story there to be investigated. So even, the fact that you thought you had a breathing process is there to be investigated. So when we're examining these marks of existence, we're trying to get closer and closer to our actual experience. And I want to say just a little bit about the sense of self. So that, in a way, is what causes us the most suffering. So that's really why the Buddha taught that there's no fixed and unchanging self. So our self-sense is like a construction. It's something we put on top of our experience. And by that I mean it'd be useful if you started to think about not just the self, but the sense of self. So we have kind of a view of self, and it changes in our experience. So sometimes in meditation, you'll get a sense that you're sort of much more fluid than you think you are. Yeah, that maybe you get that sense that you're not grasping anymore, that the breath is just flowing, that there's just air, yeah, and somehow you've gotten out of the way, yeah, somehow you haven't forced anything to happen, yeah, somehow you've gotten out of the way of this concept of you, yeah, or me. So sometimes in meditation you do get much more of a sense that this self-sense is just an idea, yeah, it's like a habit that we're in, and that at a particular end of our experience, it just feels more relaxed. That you're not trying to fix everything as yours, because it isn't yours. It's not your air, yeah. It's not your space. Somebody else will come in tomorrow morning and take your space, yeah. So that's one end of the self-sense, and another end of the self-sense is, and the way we experience ourselves, is when we feel threatened or we feel like we're losing something. We really, really build a sense of self very, very strongly. So say your partner, who you love so dearly, tells you they're in love with somebody else. You'll soon find your sense of self, yeah? Most of us would not be that relaxed about that situation, yeah? Most of us tighten up and think, but you're my partner, yeah? But that's not supposed to happen. So it's like your sense of self becomes much more, when you sense a threat or that you're going to lose something, it becomes much more fixed, much more rigid. And of course it creates much more suffering, it's much more painful. So it's like our emotional response. We think that that's how things are. We sort of believe in that story. And that's one end of the pole when we feel threatened. And then the other end of the pole in the meditation, well, it doesn't really make sense, does it? It's like, where did this sense of self go? So it's good to start to get a sense of the fluidity of the self-sense. So often people often fixate when they come to Buddhism on a sense of like, well, is there a self or not? The Buddha taught that there was no self. But really it's looking in these teachings, can you get closer and closer to the habit in which you create self, how you construct the self, yeah, when it feels fixed and tight and really present, me, mine, stay away, yeah, I want what I want. And then that other experience of self, which is much more fluid, much more loose, much more in touch with reality, much more interconnected. It's less fabricated, the sense of self that I was talking about in the meditation. It's less added on. And the Buddha said that you will always experience a sense of uncomfortableness with a constructed self. So when you're fixing and grabbing and shoring up your sense of self, it leads to suffering. So this second mark of existence comes up much more fully. That in a way is some way in which they're related. So we've said on this course before that we construct other things, so not just our sense of self. We make things substantial when they're not, and some of our very conventional concepts that we construct. So we've talked a bit about time and space before. So the Buddha said, examine everything in your experience for a sense of it being insubstantial. So you only have to, say, do a little exercise where, Liv, I said to you, can you move into the future? So you move your hand into the future. Let's try and do that. So all you've got to do is move your hand into the future. So this proves that the future is there. So if you just move your hand into the future, to get that sense of how you're going to do that. It doesn't really work, yeah? And then you can move your hand into the past. Doesn't really work either. And then move your hand in the present. So I bet you can all do that. So let's try and move our hand in the present. It's a bit more mysterious than meets the eye, yeah? So time is just a construct, yeah? We construct it. So you want to keep trying to see if you can separate out the past and the present and the future. And if you can't isolate those things, it means time is a construct, yeah? That it's constructed, that it's fabricated. Of course, why I'm really saying that and why I say anything is that Buddha said that it'll free you if you get closer to the way things are. So if you start to examine your constructions, yeah. So it's really mysterious, our experience, because most of us would say the past and the future and the present, it definitely exists. It definitely exists, but it exists sort of in our mind. We construct it. So before we go all, ooh, really weird, I want to just say the last few things about how we might go about examining this sort of sense of how we construct self. And in the week, in the homework, we'll be looking a little bit about can you get in a way like a more visceral, experienced sense of how you're constructing your sense of self in the week. So there are lots of sort of traditional ways of looking to kind of understand what how we make self, if you like, how we make the story of me, yeah. So you can do lots of practices where we started on this course doing practice looking at the senses, yeah. So you're just opening more to your actual experience of what's there. So you're opening your ears, you're using your nose, you're using sight, you're using touch, you're using your mind sense, to just get a sense of how your experience actually breaks down. So you're sort of slowing down in a way, so you isolate certain senses. So you're just getting a sense that we're this bunch of processes, yeah, that we have these senses, and that in a way, well, there's nothing fixed about your experience, yeah. So there is this sense of things changing, and yet there's no things. So, you can start to get quite a strong sense when you start bringing awareness to the senses, of exploring your experience in a slightly different way. And then you can sort of look further, like in practices like exploring the elements that make you up. So you can explore things like the earth element and the fire element and the water element. Water accounts for most of us. Most of our body is water. And the air, you start to explore, okay, what is this quality of air moving in and out of the body? And then you start to explore consciousness. So consciousness is not yours, yeah. When you look more deeply, you start to realise that consciousness is just another element. You borrow it, yeah. like you borrow the water, you drink some water, you give it back. Yeah. You experience consciousness. Consciousness experiences itself. It's given back. Yeah. So consciousness has qualities too. But I think in a way, there's a lot of Buddhist practices that in a way start us to help us break down our experience in a certain way and look at our experience. But I think the main ways in which I want you to do it is just to really we'll just narrow it down to 2 particular ways. So I was thinking for the homework this week, I'd like you to notice when you're in experiences where you feel threatened or challenged in some way. So it might be just quite a subtle thing. Maybe somebody brushes past you on the tube or something. Or it might be that you're having a row with somebody, yeah? Or it might be that you just feel physically uncomfortable. Or it might be that you're in a meeting and you just don't like what the person's saying, and you feel really threatened by their view, and you feel like I've got to tell them what I think. So see if in the week you can get a sense of when you feel slightly uncomfortable and threatened in some way. And this sense of self often comes up quite sharply. You sort of think, okay, I've got to do something, yeah? You're immediately in the sense of, I've got to do something, yeah? You've fixed your response. It's like your edges have got stronger, more rigid. So see if you can notice what happens when that happens when you're under threat. Mostly you'll be noticing tightening, yeah, that you'll tighten up. You might start to speak, yeah, and the words sound quite rigid, yeah, quite forceful. So see if when you're in that sense, you can try and relax. See if you can soften in the body. See if maybe you don't need to assert your view right here, right now. Yeah. See if you can buy yourself some time to create a gap, because before you know it, you've you just add more narrative into the story. You just add on. You sort of construct more and more of the experience. So you feel threatened, and you sort of raise the threat level, if you like. You don't really stop to think that somebody else is just like you. They too have a fluid sense of self. They're not as fixed and rigid as you think they are. Yeah, they too have the capacity to just be much more open, much more less clingy, less graspy. So often we sort of fix ourselves in relation to others, and then we fix them too. You see when you are around others and there is that sense of threat or difference of opinion, see how you fix yourself more, how you cling more to yourself, and see what you're doing in relation to other people. So often we create a story about other people which fixes them, and we think we know, don't we? But basically the Buddha's saying you can't know. There are thousands of conditions impacting on you and the other person. There are loads of different processes going on, which, in a way you know nothing about. But often you construct a perspective, a view of what's happening, often with very insufficient information. So see for your homework if you can see, we'll see if we can get this sense of how self is fixed, often in threat. And then part of the meditation, and we'll sort of end with a meditation. I'd like us to more fully experience and explore this sense of how we sort of fix and grip a hold of the breath and make that mine. So we started to explore that a little bit before the break, but we'll do a slightly longer period of practice to finish with, and we just see if you can get up a bit closer to the experience of, in a way, you're wanting the breath to breathe you, yeah? You're wanting the air to just sort of, in a way, just to sort of jump into an experience that doesn't have any labels. Often we're just very subtly telling ourselves a story that we're breathing. Often, you learn the practices and then you think, okay, that's the in-breath, that's the out-breath. So you're just very, very subtly in your mind, often labelling what's happening. And that's just an idea of what's happening. It just gets very subtly in the way of a less fabricated experience. So it's like we're going to practice with the breath and the body and the air in order so that we can just loosen some of this selfing, which is much more easy to practice usually with the breath and the body than it is in the heat of an argument. But ultimately, that's what we're looking to do. See if we can jump into that experience in the heat of an argument and be as open and aware and fluid as we can when we're just gently trying to relax around the breath. So it does have an effect when you do the meditation. It'll have an effect on the relationships in your life. And see during the week if you can just be aware of how much you collect up as you and yours, me and mine. So it's my job, isn't it? And it's my flat, and it's my car, and it's my... it just goes on and on and on. But let's see if we can just, get a sense. And it's not really like that. At the moment, I'm in the process of leaving my job. So I do work here full time and have done for about 4 years. And I'm going to be moving on, and so I'll still be here on Wednesday night. But I've really been through a process of, at first I just thought, it's like my job, and it's like I'm leaving, and just over the last sort of week or so, I just started to get a sense of how that sort of clinging to making it mine. And it's like these people I'm leaving who become very fixed in my mind, how emotionally attached I am in a particular way. So I've started to just explore this whole territory of often when we make transitions or we sort of in a way lose things, move on. That's when the sense of clinging and making mine can come up really, really strongly. It usually causes us a lot of pain. There is some natural emotional pain, obviously, in leaving, but also we just create much more suffering on top of it. We just sort of construct the experience much more. So just see if you can get up a bit more closer to how you're doing this selfing in the week. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say tonight. And then next week, Maitreya Bandhi will explore a bit of a different angle on this insubstantial quality. So let's just finish with about 15 minutes meditation.